in the house together for whatever it is, 3.5 months, is it?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we haven't had a row. We've been together in a way that we haven't been forever, really. And we've been playing games, and we've been talking, and you know, eating a lot together. And Judy's a great cook, so that's nice. And we're very lucky. We've got a house that's on 4 floors where we brought the children up. We've been here since 1982. And we've got a garden, and you know, in the sunny weather, we've been sitting out and getting a suntan. And so in that sense, we're blessed. I mean, I think about the people, you know, around, and the council estate opposite, where the screaming and shouting that's going on in some of those, you know, those flats. And there's a single mum across the way with, you know, 3 children who are very young. And I just, you know, it must be torment, the agony and the awfulness that's going on around the world. And I think, you know, whenever we get a bit depressed and upset about it, you just think, God, how lucky we are, really. And also from the point of view of being an actor, I mean, I've got mates who are in the theatre who are absolutely destitute and completely stuffed.
I did see that post which you put on Facebook the other day, and I hadn't thought about all the other ancillary industries which are affected by theatre not taking place.
That's it. It's the support industries that go with it. I mean, there's absolutely everything that it's not just the production and the actors. It's all the, you know, the support people as well. And it's like a, you know, it's like in a pond. It just goes further out. And telly. I mean, I was doing a telly. I got a nice part in a new big HBO series for Netflix, and that stopped halfway through it. I mean, presumably that'll get going again afterwards, and it's a hiatus at the moment. But you know, there are people who are doing whose careers have just completely and utterly stopped. And I really fear for people leaving drama school at the moment. I mean, you know, they haven't got anything to start with. They haven't got anything to get their foot in the door. But this is true of so many industries, and you know, and everybody has suffered, but the arts have suffered particularly badly. I mean, you think about the theatre. I mean, somebody put up a post the other day, so, oh yeah, it's absolutely fine to go to the pub now and get pissed and shout at people in the pub and spray them with your aerosols. But for people going to a classical music concert, you know, who are going to be sitting there like that, they're not allowed to sit next to each other. I mean, nobody shouts and screams at a classical music concert. Or, you know, but on the other hand, if you go to a stand-up routine or a comedy show, people are laughing a lot, you know, so you're going to be laughing, and you're going to be... So then you've got a thing of being an actor on stage and looking out at an audience where it's only half full. I mean, one of the things about when you go out on stage, and the first person that comes back off the stage, they say, what's the house like? And they go, oh, you know, it's a bit empty. Or they're very nice, they're very receptive. You go out there and you're only ever going to get half the amount of people you ever would do. You're going to come back, go, well, it's a bit quiet out there. And they're all wearing masks. So, yeah, I mean, you know, I'm lucky. I'm doing audiobooks. I've done 3 episodes of Space 1999 for Big Finish.
I have to stop you on that, because the 8-year-old me was well into anything Jerry Anderson. And Space 1999 was just, it takes me back. Was it the Interceptors? I don't know, whatever. They're on the moon, aren't they? So I didn't even know they were bringing it back. So tell us about that.
Well, they're on the moon, and the moon gets sort of nuclearly blown away from Earth. So we don't know what's happened to Earth, because Earth's been left behind without a moon. So it's obviously not in a very good state. But they're traveling through a wormhole in space on the moon. And it's like Star Trek. It's like a sort of British Star Trek, if you like, because every episode they encounter a new planet where they might want to be able to put their feet down. And of course, they all turn out to be evil. And you spell evil, E-I-L, evil, you know, like that. And I am Space Commissioner Simmons. So I'm the rather pompous Pratt, who is a little bit of a coward. But we're about to record 2 episodes Monday and Tuesday, and Simmons comes good in that. So that's quite fun. And I built myself this little studio downstairs underneath the front steps, which is acoustically dead. I mean, I've always had all the kit and everything here. But it's never been acoustically dead, so I can actually do an audio, because you can do almost everything as long as it doesn't reverberate off the walls. But with an audiobook, it's got to be absolutely silent. And it is, apart from when the postman comes and you go doom, 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 doom up the stairs. Have to stop.
That sounded like the end of EastEnders just then for a second. So are you using that same studio to record your monologues for the Archers, or did you get that kit from BBC?
Well, I've had the kit for ages, but I had to match the kit that they sent out so that we matched. So they sent us this really nice USB mic, and a cowl, which is called an Aston something cowl, that you've seen the pictures of it. It kind of goes around the back, and that makes it, that absorbs a lot of the bounce of the sound. And then people have put their duvets, around it, or put themselves in cupboards and things like that, because what you've got to do is replicate what we have in Birmingham at the mailbox, which is an anechoic room, which is called the dead room. And you've seen the pictures of it with all the acoustic tiling and everything. And the reason why that works is because they spend a lot of money on it. And it's hundreds of thousands of pounds to kit that thing up like that. And what you've then got is you've got the ability to be able to be far away from the microphone and project, and there's no bounce off the walls at all. You don't hear that you are in a room. And so there you are with your background and, up on Lakey Hill. And when you're in the dead room and you shout, it sounds like you're outside, and you cannot replicate that in your bedroom. I don't know if I noticed it when I did the very first one, and I have to shout at the dog. And even though I was, and this is before I built myself my studio downstairs, I was literally in the bedroom with duvets around it and that thing. And when I tried to kind of pretend shout, hey, but you could hear it. I could hear it. I'm meant to be on the field, and I could hear that I was in a room. And that is what the problem about that they had was. I work with Andy Partington, who's the engineer there. And I worked with, because he knew that I'm a techie and I've kind of got all the gear. So I kind of helped him to get this whole thing started and how we were going to do this. And it became clear right from the off that there was no way you were going to match two people in two different rooms to make them sound as though they were in the same room, even though they had the same microphone. The acoustic of the rest of the room made it sound like you weren't. I think in the due course of time now, with all of this happening, people's expectations of professionalism have kind of dropped. So the people are used now to seeing people on Zoom, not being in a professional studio, being in their own, rooms at home. And I think, going forward, that what will happen is that this, that they will introduce it, because it's been great seeing inside our heads and what we think and everything. Somebody made a lovely point, actually, was to say that because of isolation, here we all are isolated, that actually the idea of us just talking, being on our own, being on our own in our own headspace rather well reflected the idea of being of isolation, that you weren't actually engaging with other people, you were more introspective and thinking more. And it can't, of course it can't go on. It's been a fantastically good experiment, and I think it's really, really exciting, but that's not what ultimately what a drama is. Drama is about, essentially is about conflict and story, and there's only so much you can do with that. I think it's been a fantastic experiment, and I'm looking forward to what they do next with it, because they'll develop it into everything.
How have you...
Cheers, everybody. Sorry, can I just do a shout out for the David Archer Appreciation Group, who I think are out there. Hang on, let me just have a look at the gallery view here. Let's see, where are you all? Oh, hello. I'll see you. Who can you put your hands up? Who's in the David Archer Appreciation Group? Can I see one? Sandra. Who else? Where have we got you? Where's Carol King? Oh, look, God, there's pages of you. Carol, hello, Carol. Hello. Hello, who else? Melissa is outside by a swimming pool. God almighty, cool. That's really great. We're going to find out where Melissa is. And sorry, any more
Listen, you hijack away, sir. Yeah. This is your evening on Dum Dee Dum. So
thank you.
You do
and
things.
Pat, hello, Pat. This is great. Oh, this is so lovely. Oh, bless you all. Thank you very much for coming along. This is lovely. Cheers.
Well,
Here's I'm drinking Adnam's Ghost Ship, if anybody wants that. It's a very good one.
Yeah. If we're giving a shout out,
It's
I need to say hello to the people who are on YouTube. So to Leslie Sams, Coconut Rosie, Laura Jackson. Hello, Laura Jackson. She's over there somewhere in the States. Sarah, and I can't quite read your surname there because I don't have my glasses on. Simon Hall, Beth Parnell, Ruth Pearl, Linda Bryson, and Ray something or another. There you go. Those are the people who are chatting away on YouTube. And we, Mr. Bentinck, we actually have a record amount of people concurrently on both streams. We're up to about 120 that are watching. So I have to ask you this question, because very obviously everybody understands the reason why the format of the show needed to change. And the very fact that we have something from Ambridge is great.
Yeah.
But the critical reception has been mixed. So how do you how are the actors reacting to that? How are you reacting to that? The fact that there are people writing articles saying they hate it, and there's some people saying, "Well, I completely understand," etc. You as an actor, you're in the middle of this whole thing. How do you react to that kind of mixed reception to?
Well, I mean, we're all used to mixed receptions. It's it was what that, as I'm an old geek. I mean, I'm a computer programmer, and when when social networking started, we'd been doing the Archers long before that, and when Twitter came along and Facebook came along, and I came on it, and it started off as people were taking it like an academic course. They were approaching it as though it was a university thesis, as a literary course about the Archers. And then it was when people started to get really rude, and we all accept that about our characters. It doesn't matter what people say about our characters. We're there to be knocked down. It was when people got personal, started talking about the actors, that I just went, nah. You know what? I think I might just miss out on that one, because everybody's entitled to their view, of course. I mean, in any character that I've played in my life, some people will like that character, and some people won't like that character, and that's part that goes. It's part of it's what you sign up for. It's part of the course. But to answer your question about this specifically, we all thought, well, the very first thing to say, is it better to have it or to have not had it? Because that was the choice, essentially. You either said, we're going to take the Archers off the air, because we couldn't carry on doing it in the studio. So it was either you've got the Archers or you haven't got the Archers. So this is the Archers, but not as you know it. And you're going to hear inside people's heads. And there it was presented, and you going, okay, I like this. I like hearing what people are thinking. I never realized that character thought like that, blah, blah, blah. And if you don't like it, then you've got no Archers, then it's your choice. You can turn it off and just wait until it all comes back, because it will come back, and there's just going to be a hiatus. So this is a sort of a filling point for people who are happy to just hear, what we're all thinking, and an experiment in weird times. And I'm incredibly proud, really, and impressed with the production team to be able to have got this together, because I can tell you, mate, it's really challenging to do this. And big shout out for Andy Partington, who's the engineer, and all the rest of the crew, all the writers, the production team, and everybody, to have got this together. They sent out, we've got our Archers microphone, that's what we've all got, and we've got our little Aston cowling thing, and a mic muff, and we've got our headphones that are actually rather a nice pair of cans, thank you. And we all got sent this in the post. It was terribly exciting. And there's, old geeky bloke here who sort of set it all up in 5.5 seconds. And other people were going, I've never even seen this, what do we do? And again, how do you do it? Do you want me to just give you a quick lowdown on the technicality side of this?
Go.
Okay. So you can't, there's a thing called clean feed, which I've been recording. We've been doing ADR and dubbing, and we've been doing this Space 1999 and Doctor Who through clean feed. And what that means is that if at the other end they've got a massive, great, like 10 gigabyte pipe to be able to accept the information that's coming in, if you've got a decent internet connection, You can record, and it'll go down the line in the same way that it used to with ISDN, and it will be recorded at their end, and they can record up to 6 tracks, 6 people coming in at the same time. Now, Andy wasn't in the BBC because he's not allowed in there, so he's at home. This is the engineer at home with a not very strong internet connection, not good enough for that. So the way we had to do it was we had to record ourselves locally. So there you are, you're sitting with your Mac, and you download a program called Audacity, which is a free program. And then what you're doing is you're recording each one of your tracks on that program. And I know how to do that. A lot of people didn't know how to do that. So what Andy does is he comes down with Chrome Remote Desktop. He takes over your computer. He checks the levels and everything and exports it at the right megahertz and bit rate and all that. And he is actually recording remotely on your computer, and then when the track's done, he then saves it into Dropbox, which he shares. So then it comes into him. He's then got all the things, so it's not coming down the line, it's recorded locally, and he then puts them all into Pro Tools or whatever, and then mixes it. So then you've got to balance it and put all the sound effects in the background and everything, and they're all doing that at home, having sent out all this kit to some of the actors. And that's why you're not hearing some of the older actors, because Paddy Green, darling Paddy, is not about to start setting herself up with microphones in her bedroom, and the rest. I mean, Charles Collingwood, finally, he's on. Charles hadn't got a computer before this.
Wow.
Charles is a professional stick in the mud, and he prides himself on it. He got a mobile phone. That was an enormous step forward for Charles Collingwood and Judy Bennett. Pride themselves. I haven't got a computer. Anyway, they got him online now. So yeah, it's been a huge adventure, really for us. And I get it, if this isn't the Archers, I get that. And I'm sorry for people who don't like it. But the answer is the alternative really was that you wouldn't have had a program.
I need to quickly pause and ask you a question, sir. There is a listener of Dum Dee Dum who is very close to my heart, right? A gentleman called Glyn Fullerlove. And I think that in error, Tim, you might have, what's the polite way of saying you ignore his messages on Twitter? He's a big fan of yours. He's a big fan. And actually, a few weeks ago, Glyn said, sorry. I think Mr. Bentinck, David Archer, is in error, kind of blocked me. So if you could speak to him and get him to unblock me, he will adopt me as his surrogate son. So if you can do that for me, Tim, after the show, I can see him now laughing his head off.
Oh, mate. Honestly, I hardly do Twitter. I really do. I mean, I every now and again, because I've turned notifications off, so it doesn't kind of come at me. Every now and again, I go, let's see what's on Twitter. Hang on, where is it? Where is he? Okay, well, I'll do it. What's his name?
Glyn Fullerlove. Glyn Fullerlove, and because I need to be part of the Fullerlove family. It's been an ambition of mine for quite some time. He's a very wonderful Dum Dee Dum listener. He's a stalwart. And
Fullerlove.
Yeah, full of love. L-U-L-L-E-L-O-V-E. It's the most wonderful surnames. I quite fancy being Royfield Fullerlove.
Is that his real name?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there he is. There he is on.
There you are. Fullerlove. Yes. Great name. Hello, mate.
Hello.
Sorry, I didn't mean to block you. It probably the reason I would have.
I thought you might be bored about. I tend to tweet a lot about tax, so I thought you might find it a bit boring. You see,
could have been it.
It's at Glyn12GH. There you go. I'll mute myself.
Okay, I will unblock you immediately, Glyn, and I'm very sorry that I did. But it was probably when I was having to do my tax return, and I went, no, I'm not having this one either. Brilliant. Oh, I'm so sorry. No, I don't. I mean, again, the things that happened recently. There was a thing that happened on Facebook. We did a little radio sketch with Toby Lawrence, who plays
Freddie.
Yeah, Freddie. That's right. Thank you. Who was that? Somebody spoke.
Hi, I'm Amy.
Oh, hi, Amy.
Sorry, I'm blind. And actually, Tim, we have spoken on Facebook briefly. You sent me a lovely message, basically saying that I'm really sorry that I'm rubbish on Facebook, and I'm friends with Basil Clement, who
lovely Basil.
Yes, dear
Yeah.
old Basil.
Oh, great.
So I'm sorry to interrupt there. I just
no, not at all. No, but so we did this little sketch with me and oh God, what's the other twin called? Was it Freddie and Lily?
Katie.
Katie, thank you. And we did this really funny sketch that Toby had written, and we did it together and remotely, and he put it together. And I'll give you the URL for it afterwards. It's it's really funny. It's about a customer who's been held on hold music for an hour and finally comes through. And he's a bit Basil Fawlty, that's me. And we put this whole thing together, and it was a podcast, and we put it up on Facebook. And the nature of Facebook is it's really weird. If you put a link to somewhere else, if you put a link to YouTube or something like that, Facebook decrees that unless it's got complete control and autonomy over it, it doesn't seem to get through to anyone. So just naughtily, I thought, well, let's just test this one out. So I downloaded a picture of a kitten, a rather cute kitten from the internet. And I just posted it up and just put a little thing saying, just experimenting. And I got all these hits going, oh, what a cute kitten. Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. And half the time you put enormous amounts of effort into something. And, you've written something and, huge amounts of production and everything. You put it out, go, hey, look at that, and people go, oh, yeah, right. And you put a kitten up and they go, oh, yes. So I'm slightly jaded with it. Also, with the whole thing about Facebook at the moment, I'm and that's one of the things about lockdown is that this is great. The fact that you're seeing, I'm having fun with friends and family and playing games and talking to people on Zoom and everything, and the reality of the real people is so much better than the kind of the awfulness of endless downer that is social media half the time. Let's have something uplifting. If you're going to put something on social media, be nice, be funny, be friendly, be creative, put something up that you haven't seen before, that's that's unusual, that's new. But I get worn down by negativity sometimes, and by people having a go and wanting to be conflict and all that.
I can only but imagine how being an actor in The Archers has changed from when you first came into it in the early 1980s. Now it's a case of instant feedback, isn't it? It's a case of fans being able to say, well, that show was good or that one was bad, etc. Whereas it was it was another world back then. You guys really were in a bubble, in a silo back then, weren't you?
We were, and also people didn't, people have got used to instant reactions now because you have everybody is a critic, whereas in those days you had to really get uptight to be Mr. Outraged of Tunbridge Wells and get on the typewriter and write a letter to the Times or to the Telegraph or to the BBC. There wasn't feedback. There wasn't any feedback apart from letters. And the letters would come to the production office and they would be virtually ignored, really, because it didn't represent, if you've got 5 million people and you've got 5 people who are upset about something, you're not going to pay attention to that because it's such a low percentage. Whereas now, I think people do pay attention to what comes back. On the other hand, it has to be said that, again, if you've got 5 million people listening to it, even if you've got, 2,000 people who write in or who say something about something on Facebook, it's still very unrepresentative because the vast majority of people who listen to The Archers aren't commenting or saying or talking on Facebook. So, I mean, from my point of view, I really, I'm terribly keen on everybody being able to say whatever they want. If you find yourself sometimes being attacked, you tend to kind of shy away from that. And I've had a couple of comments where I've gone, that was unnecessary. So I just don't put myself up. I don't put my head above the parapet. Just let them get on with it. It's fine.
Going back to the early 1980s, I think it's kind of part of the human condition that when you first get into something, whatever the heck it is. I love Formula One.
Yeah.
And I'm still a fan of Ayrton Senna, and I still believe that Lotus should be a car, and Nigel Mansell has a big bussy moustache, because I came into it in the early 1980s.
Yeah.
The start at the time. And ditto for me, the Archers. I love change, but also I'm nostalgic for the past.
Yeah.
The cast was very different back then, wasn't it? It was people that had done rep or still doing rep. And tell us about some of those old characters, kind of like back then, back in the day, and just kind of quantitatively how maybe the type of person who now comes into the Archers, how that typical actor has kind of changed.
Well, I mean, we're all actors now, and have been for a long time. But when I first started, there were people who weren't, who hadn't been brought up in the theatrical tradition, and who were broadcasters, who were the real thing, the real, Harry Oakes and Chris Gittins, and it was the old country characters who actually talked like that and wore tweeds and, got their welly boots on and their pork pie hats and came into the studio and smelling of, dung and almost, and they were very, very different. They were real country folk, and they were the real deal, as it were. And I remember when I first came, it started in 1982. In fact, last week was my 38th. It was the 38th anniversary. It was literally last week with my first lines. Evening all was my first ever line. Yeah. And I wasn't going to be a policeman. But no, it was so weird. I mean, I came into this thing, which was a legend. And there were these two groups of people. On the left, you had all these old real country folk and then there were all these actors all calling each other darling and moaning about money and about their agents. And, as it always has been. It was very, very different. You didn't go and sit in, in their chairs. It was, it was frowned upon that that you had your place, and there was a hierarchy. There was a hierarchical thing about it, that the seniors were the seniors, and everyone smoked. And that was the other weird thing. You imagine standing around a microphone, everybody with a fag on or a pipe going. It was, and talking about, technically the dead room wasn't dead at all. You shouted too loudly, it bounced completely off the walls, because they, these cheap old rooms at Pebble Mill. It's all, God, it's 38 years ago. It's extraordinary. I've changed. That I was the young thing, I was the bright young thing. I was doing By the Sword Divided at the time. I was being a cavalier hero on horseback, and I had long blonde hair and a sodding great gold earring in my ear, and metaphorically a sword around my waist and big pirate boots. Things came trudging in, and Paddy almost had a fit when I turned up that I was going to be playing her son, because I look back at it now. Here you go. Times change. That's what I looked like. Take this off the wall. That was how I looked when I first started in 1982.
Very dashing. Now, I have to say, for Amy and Lillian are two blind.
Sorry. Yes.
You'll imagine a dashing
Errol Flynn.
Exactly.
I don't know who that is.
Big pirate boots and a wonderful flowing white shirt.
Yes.
I'm sure you're very good looking in that picture, Tim. I'm
Thank you. It's all gone now. It's all dissipated now. It's just.
I bet that's rubbish.
Just an old man now. Just an old man.
The old fart. Old fart.
I'm an old fart.
Yeah.
And this is how I earn my living half the time. You see, half the time I'm doing lots of computer games at the moment, in which I play.
All right. Yes. Lovely, jubbly. Yes.
Yeah. And orcs as well. Having to be orcs, using my belly voice for that. For the sword and sorcery.
When did you discover that you had this massive talent for voices. I know it's something which we have briefly touched on before, and what utterly blew my mind was you explained to me how the New York accent, within the roots of it, is Dutch, and you know, the old name of New York was New Amsterdam.
Yeah.
So, when did you discover that you had this talent for voices, and that you could actually make a living out of not only being an actor, but having this great talent for voices and for accents?
Very sweet of you. It's not a talent. I mean, I was sort of, you kind of born with it. It's a music.
I can't do Jamaican properly, let alone Brummie, and I'm both of those things.
I can hear you Brummie, mate. Don't worry. I can hear that already, right there. And I don't want to get into the other subject because,
There you go.
You're a lot better at that than I am, mate.
We had a taxi driver came to the door years and years ago, and a little tiny geezer with glasses and a flat hat opened the door, and he said, "Taxi for Bentinck." And I went, "Where are you from?" He said, "Oh man," he said, "I'm from Jamaica." He's a white Jamaican, you don't expect that. Maybe not. Now I had it. I mean, it's musicality. I mean, there's the guitars behind me here, and I've always been musical. And it goes. Apparently, the two things go together. That you've got an ear for music, then you've got an ear for accent, and it's just a weird thing. I can hear it and I can replicate it. And I've got.
I'm very like that, Tim. I'm very good with accents. Yeah.
Cool. Good. Yeah, I bet you are.
I don't know if that's because I'm blind or what, but
I think
sorry, I'm playing the blind card tonight. I do apologize. And if you want me to shut up, please tell me.
Cool.
I
think it's absolutely true. I think your sense of hearing is heightened because of your loss of sight. And I think that's very true. You're very, very attuned to stuff.
Yeah.
I'm apparently going deaf. I went and had an ear test the other day, and this very, very nice attractive Eastern European girl put me in a box and gave me a hearing test, and I came out, and she said, "So, Mr. Bentinck, you'll see here is the graph of your hearing, and here it goes along the top is very good, very good, very good, and then here you'll see a dip that goes down and there." I said, "So what frequency is that dip?" She said, "Is exactly the frequency of female speech." Which is why my wife had sent me to go and have a hearing test, because I keep saying what to her. I can hear everybody else absolutely fine. My son, mates, everybody like that. Judy, selectively deaf.
On that note, I have to pause because we need to start by doing basically the Dum-de-Dum quiz. So if you haven't got pencil and paper, or maybe you've got a slate there and a bit of chalk, or anything else, I suggest you go and get that now. And whilst you're getting that, I need to tell everybody, go and vote for Dum-de-Dum on the British Podcast Listener's Choice Award. Now, go on to britishpodcastawards.com/vote. Now, we probably won't win because we never have any year that this august award has been running, but we always get an honourable mention. So much so that I think the first year, which is about 3 years ago, we were actually invited down to the awards ceremony. So we won't win because we're not one of those cool metropolitan hit podcasts, but it's nice to get a mention because we are a community. So it's at the bottom of the screen, British Podcast Awards, Listener's Choice, and it's britishpodcastawards.com/vote. Go give us a vote. We might get a mention. Now, I've tested this, everybody, and it is up and working. So here we go. We start off with the picture round. It is the infamous Dum-de-Dum picture round. Play along with this, Mr. B. Okay. This is an archer's thing or person. Now, so what we have here is an animal which likes to rummage around in muck. Is the first image. Then we have something which we put our stuff in, something that's a bit of an old-fashioned bit of furniture which maybe pirates had to put their treasure in. And then the last image, we have the universal symbol of some type of humanity, and I'm explaining this for our non-sighted viewers. right now. So this is an archer's thing or person. That is number one. It's an animal that likes to rummage around in muck and filth. And then we have an old bit of furniture, classically something that a pirate might like keep their doubloons in or their gold bullion. And then we have a universal symbol of some part of humanity. That's question number one. Number two, we have a substance which is white and powdery. So a powdery substance which is in a in some kind of jar, not in a jar, in a bowl, sorry. And then image number two, we have a whole load of vegetables. Well, there's some vegetables, there's some fruit there. It's very colorful. Then image number three, we have lots of lights. It looks like a stage of some sorts. Maybe a pop star is about to appear. So this is question number two. We have a white powdery substance, and then we have colorful fruit and veg, and then some kind of stage, which may be, I was about to say Michael Jackson, then I thought George Michael. I'm showing my age. Some pop star, Ed Sheeran might appear on. Again, this is an archer's thing or person. Then image number three, we have a number, the smallest whole number. And then we have a piece of material which has a little bit of metal underneath it. I think normally it's attached to something else. I'm trying not to give this away. And then we have a book is our third image, and it's the Cambridge English KET for Schools Trainer book. So the Cambridge English KET for Schools Trainer, 6 practice tests. This is an archer's thing or person. We will come back onto these at the end. Now, if you've been paying attention, you're going to ace the first couple of questions of the Timothy Bentinck round. When did Timothy begin his role of David? If you're good at maths, you said this a couple of times, if you can subtract the years from where we are now in 2020, was it A, 1979, B, 1982, C, 1985? If you've been listening, paying attention, if you didn't know this before today, you know this now if you've been paying attention. Question number two. What were Tim's first words on the Archers? And he just said it all about 5 minutes ago. Was it A, hello, mum, hello, dad, it's me, it's David? Was it B, evening all? Or was it C, I hope it's lasagna for dinner tonight? What was Timothy's first words on joining the Archers? Again, if you're paying attention, you've got that one. I thought there was going to be a real deep cut until Mr. B actually told us all about 5 minutes ago, if you're paying attention. Question number three. When being a man about town or the village in the 1980s, David had a trusty steed. What was it? Was it A, a Ford Sierra, B, a Ford Capri, or C, a Ford Escort XR3i? He loved that thing, and he went out a-courting in it. Was it A, a Ford Sierra, B, a Ford Capri, or C, a Ford Escort XR3i? I know we have listeners of a younger vintage, but if you just think of a young David Archer. He was young and he was thrusting. And which one of those racy cars do you reckon he would have driven around in? Question number 4 on the Timothy Bentinck round is, the name Bentinck appeared on the Archers credits before Tim joined the set. How? I only learnt this today, folks. I will freely admit. A, the 9th Earl of Portland made an appearance on the at the Flower and Produce show in the 1960s. Is that how the surname Bentinck appeared in the Archers credits before Tim actually joined? B, Norman Painting used it as a nom de plume? Or is it C, Nelson, my favorite old character, sold a painting by Jasper Bentinck? So I'm going to read those again. The name Bentinck appeared on the Archers credits before Tim joined the set. How? Was it A, the 9th Earl of Portland made an appearance at the Flower and Produce show in the 1960s? B, Norman Painting used it as a nom de plume, or C, Nelson sold a painting by Jasper Bentinck when he had the antique shop. And then the last question, David is a passionate man, but what thing gets on his goat the most? Is it A, badgers, number C, Vince Casey, or C, being owed money by his brother Kenton? Which one of those gets him riled up the most? So I'll read that again. Is it A, badgers? Does he hate a badger? David Archer. B, is it Vince Casey? Ooh, he hates a brummy businessman who's trying to do him over on a deal. Or is it C, he hates being owed money by his brother? So there you go, folks. We will come back to those later on in the show. We'll get your answers. Tim, no pressure. And I say this every week.
Yeah.
Every actor, with the exception of Tim Pepperell, has got every one of their questions right. So
what are their own questions?
Yes, their own questions.
Yeah.
Pitch around, we'll let that go. We'll let that go.
I've got my own questions right.
Okay.
But the picture rounds, I've got absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
No, I think you have to be a viewer of the Dum-de-Dum Does Zoom to realize how my mind works.
Okay.
And then people can't kind of then get them.
They have to tune in on you.
Exactly. You focus in. A few more questions before we kind of throw this out. At what point did you kind of realize, because you came in as a thrusting young thing. At what point did you realize that you'd moved from being the thrusting young thing to actually being a senior member of the cast? Obviously, the role of David, actually, the whole drama slowly revolves around Brookfield, and you are the patriarch. You've become Norman Painting in effect, right? But at what point did you realize that, crumbs, not only have I been here for quite some time, but actually I'm not one of the new young things anymore. I'm actually part of in the nicest possible way, the grey senior set. No,
it is. And, you go through these different periods, and, here we are now, and there's a new generation. There's a sort of the next generation that is forming now. And the ones who were the bright young things 10 years ago are already looking, at the youngsters and going, you've got all my episodes made and things. I think the answer was when they said that David and Ruth were going to take over Brookfield. That was the turning point. And that, even though Phil and Jill were still alive, and they handed over the running of the farm to us, that was a huge turning point, really. And then having children, and becoming parents, and the rest. I mean, everything else has been a kind of been a gradual thing, but those, I think, were the two turning points: is running the farm and becoming parents, and then now grandparents. But then you still got June Spencer, who's 100. And so we're still not the oldies yet. I mean, I'm, the other great thing about David is that he's 6 years younger than I am. So I've got eternal youth with David Archer. And, this thing about him turning 60 and having a midlife crisis and, not being as fit and strong as he was before, I'm going, get off, I'm perfectly all right. I'm still fit and as a flea, thank God, touch wood. Say that, not these days. But anyway, and David's 6 years younger than me, so they're a tough breed farmers, so it was an extraordinary job. An extraordinary job to have joined up when I was 29, and here I am, age 67, and I'm still doing that job. And that that might be true of other jobs, but not acting. There's no other thing, unless you were in a Coronation Street or EastEnders. But I mean, we've been going longer than any of them. So, and also the great thing about that is that I wouldn't want to have been in a soap and a telly soap, because I'd never have had all the the parts that I've played on stage and on screen, in film and in television, and all the other things that I do. because you'd be typecast if you were, you know, you'd just be that one character in that soap opera. Whereas with David, yeah, you know, people, I come on screen and or on stage and things, and they go, oh, I've heard that voice before, but they don't associate my face with David, you know, in the way that you do with a screen character. So they'll get, you know, I remember I did Educating Rita down at the Watermill Theatre in Reading, and got the local papers. You know, got national press, but the local paper and said, and then onto the stage came the dulcet tones of David Archer, and I went, what do you have to do? But you know, that goes with the territory. Also, the thing is that I don't know about you. I mean, people say, they've often said to me, it's only when I tell them, you know, or somebody says this, Tim plays David on The Archers, that I could have been talking to them all evening and they wouldn't recognize my voice because I'm not David. That's only when they are told, they kind of retune and they go, oh yeah, now I can hear it, you know. But I've never, I don't think ever in my entire life had anyone go, wait a minute, that voice is familiar. Do you play David in The Archers? Because it's out of context, you know. It's and it's not me. I mean, David doesn't talk like I do. You know what I mean?
Last question from me before I throw it out to the dum-de-dummers. After this amount of time of you being on the show, almost 40 years, do you feel paternalistic towards the other actors? And I don't just mean the younger actors. But do you feel that, do you feel paternalistic towards them? Because I think you do. Graham Seed said something really lovely about a month ago when he came on. He was incredibly honest about the way that he felt when he got the news that the role of Nigel was being axed. You know, he said, I cried. Royfield, I cried. You know, he said, and also the way I was told, I thought I deserved a little bit better than that, you know, just to be told over the phone. I wasn't called into the office and whatever. And he said, I got depressed. And he made a point of saying that my mate Tim was really angry on my behalf and stuff. So I'm guessing that you not only are you very that you have a connection to the role, but also that you look out for your fellow actors, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, we had a thing recently with me and Toby were in a film, and the guy who was directing it behaved really badly, and so I pulled out because he'd behaved really badly towards Toby, and he was a fellow actor, so I just pulled out. And I do. I mean, I can't. One thing I cannot bear. I really, really cannot bear. Almost bear is bullying. I cannot bear bullying, and I think that's because I got a bit bullied when I was at my prep school, not physically but mentally. And when I saw bullying happening with my children, it used to drive me up the pole. And I cannot stand bullies, which is one of the reasons I so detest Trump. You know, for instance, because he's a bully. I cannot bear the abuse of power. I really, really can't bear it. And so I will, I look out for the people who can't defend themselves and people who are being, are being attacked. But also, when you say the cast, that wasn't David and Nigel. That was Tim and Graham. And what we are as a cast is we're family. And the longer you've been in it, the closer you are to that family. And then when people come into the cast, the younger members of the cast, it's like they've joined an extended family, and we're very we're tight. We accept, and they're not threatening. Bastard, you got 12 episodes this month, and I've only got 1. But that's banter, and that goes with the territory. You never know how many episodes you're going to get, and the storyline's going to go down there. It's going to go down there. You never ever resent the actor doing it. We for a long time, me and Felicity had a guaranteed 6 episodes per month under Vanessa Whitburn for years and years and years. Can you imagine what that felt like for the other actors? You bastard, you've got guaranteed episodes, and we just don't know from month to month what we're going to be getting. And I know that they could have really, that the actors behind our backs were going, bloody Tim and Flick, they got all these episodes, Sodom. And, that's par for the course. But that's banter, it's not, and they knew it wasn't our fault. We were just lucky. They were going, you lucky bastards. And we were. And now that, I don't know whether, I haven't got any episodes this month or next month, but I've got a lot of other work. So, it's a job. It's a job. But the thing about the Archers is it's more than a job, because what it actually is, it's a group of people who, you get very close to people when you're in theatre. You do a job in theatre and you're in it for whatever, months or weeks or even years. And you get really close because of the fear, because you're on stage and you're in front of people and it's terrifying. And all you've got is your mates to help you and look out for you and to support you. And we've got that as a group of people who are a tightly knit bunch of people who've got this privilege of being in the Archers, and we all treat it as a privilege, and we are we look out for each other, and we love each other. And the longer we've been in it, I've been in it, it's say 38 years. There are people that are actors in it I've known for 38 years. There are some of the younger ones I've only known for 1 year. But then you get people who come into it and make an impact, like James Cartwright, for instance. Who plays Harrison.
Yeah.
James comes into the green room. Hello, my mate. Comes up with a great stonking great hug like that. All right, old fellow mate. And he's just this ball of energy. And when he came in, he said, Tim, I've got to tell you, mate, I've no idea what I'm doing. No idea. Because he's a great actor, but he'd never done radio before. How do you do it? And I'd do something and he'd look at me and go, mate, what are you doing? And he picked it up and he went with it. And I gave him, we all gave him, we give little hints. Yeah, am I allowed to? Can I say, can I suggest maybe do it a bit like that? And he goes, yeah, tell me all. Hungry. I'm hungry for it. So we give him all that. And now he's one of, he's a fantastic and strong member of the team. And all of them, they all come in, and some of them have never done radio before. And they learn. And we help. We don't give them notes, but we kind of give them little hints, and we're supportive, we don't take the piss, and we don't denigrate them, and we don't talk behind their back, unless it's Graham Seed, in which case we do. He does.
You talked about privilege before, and that you're privileged to be part of this I'm going to say veritable institution, and we are privileged as fans of the Archers to have you in front of us on this Friday evening. So if you have a question for our Tim, wave now. And all right, Quentin Rayner, right? You've been outed, sir. If you want to unmute yourself there, Quentin. You've been outed. Tim. There's this dude. He's about to ask you a question.
Right, I can see you. Hello, Quentin.
Hi, Tim.
He like every week he asks great questions. So much so, a couple of weeks ago I said, "Why don't you just do Dum-de-Dum?" Right? He's only a BBC TV newsreader.
So you are.
Anyway, Quentin, you're up. Go for it, mate.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Quentin.
I don't know if Roy Fields warned you, but sometimes these exchanges actually get quoted in the national press, because the Telegraph from last week, and my exchange with Kerry Davis was quoted in the Daily Telegraph.
Yes, I did see that. Yeah,
I have heard this, and I was warned by our press guy. That normally Roy Field will ask me a question, and I'll answer it, and this time I've got to behave like a politician.
So the press they're watching, they're listening, Tim.
Right.
What I tend to do on these is just some quick fire questions, frivolous, and most people seem to enjoy them. So
okay,
shall I throw you some quick fire questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I've done a bit of research on you, Tim, so I've got to ask you this: what are you more proud of? 38 years on the Archers, or 15 years as the voice of Mind the Gap on the Piccadilly line?
Well, the one you could attract me with is it's 8 years as the voice of Victor Saltzpyre in Vermintide, for which in America I've got a massive following. When people find out that I am the voice of Victor Saltzpyre in Vermintide, they go, "Oh man, you're kidding me! You're a legend!" So if in America, they wouldn't know David Archer, but they would know Victor Salzbar. And no, the answer is the Archers. That was.
Can you give us some? Can you give us a mind the gap moment? We're on the Piccadilly line, so
you're on the Piccadilly line. I'm not. I'm no longer there. They pulled me, but for something like 18 years, if you pulled into Holborn, you would hear, "Please mind the gap. This is Holborn. The next station is Russell Square. Please stand clear of the closing doors." And nobody ever got the fact that that was David Archer.
What's it like to hear you?
Apart from Graham Garden on what's the? I'm sorry, I haven't a clue.
I haven't a clue. Yeah. So what was it like? What was it like to hear yourself on the station? Must be weird.
It was very weird, but it was very nice for my children because they used to travel on the tube and they used to feel that their father was looking out for them.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. I could, one about the Archers. In real life, Tim, would Pip give you the pip?
I haven't got a daughter. I only have 2 sons. So she is my erstwhile daughter. She's the daughter that I never had, apart from my niece, Sophie, who's my sister's daughter, who's in reality the closest I got to a daughter. But yes, Pip would have given me the pip, but I would always have loved her all the way through and seen her inner beauty and charm and wondrousness, which is there. And which will in no doubt come out. I mean, what's so lovely about being allowed to go through a fictional father-daughter relationship is that it ain't real, man. You know, it's great.
It's not real. Oh, I thought it was real. Are you still in touch with your student flatmate, Daniel Day-Lewis?
No, I wish. No, he's. I saw him once in the street. But he's very private, Dan. You know, he's a very private man. He's in Ireland. He's in a castle in Ireland, I think. But what's nice about Dan is that I saw him being interviewed on Parkinson years and years ago. You know, well, not years ago, but he was very, very famous. You know, then, and watching Dan. And I thought to myself, if we did run into each other, he would be the same boy. You know, he would be the same self-effacing, modest, sweet, thoughtful, charming boy that I knew at Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. For all his 3 Oscars, the bastard. Mind you, he didn't get David Archer, did he?
Can I have one more question, Royfield?
Just the one, then I'm kicking you off, sir.
Okay, sir. Right. You mentioned you're a bit of a computer whiz kid and you got all the kit going really quickly and so forth. I mean, this article, quoting Kerry, I was questioning him about why it was so restrictive. You know, here we are, 50 plus people all talking together, and a lot of us missed the dialogue. And I know you've gone through the technicalities, but are you entirely convinced as to why it's not possible still, technically, to have dialogues, given the whiz-kiddery and the technology that is around and capable people like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, you know, I am but a humble actor, and I'm not in a position to be able to answer that question. You really need to talk to the team. But I think the answer is because of professionalism and high standards. Is that from Andy's point of view, it wasn't going to sound right, you know, to a non-professional ear, we could have got away with it, I think. But it wouldn't have sounded right. It wouldn't have sounded like the Archers. And this was an opportunity to do something which I think is extraordinarily original and has never been done before. It's a complete departure. And it was an experiment. And it's, you know, some people have liked it and some people haven't liked it. But it would have sounded really, really weird if we'd gone straight into dialogue. And I think this is a way in. I mean, I can't speak for the team, but I'm pretty sure that this will develop, and that as we get better at it, and as that we, I mean, I thought of doing a little kind of a joke video of saying, here I am at home, and I've got you know, the millions of pounds that's spent on acoustically proper rooms. Here I am outside, and then I cut to me outside with the microphone, you know, outside in the garden, recording it onto the computer, and then in my shed, and then in the shower, you know, with the shower going, and then go out into the high street and then sit there at a table like Monty Python, you know, and now for something completely different in the high street, and say, and look, it sounds like the high street. I'm still going to do that, actually. I think that'd be rather
You should
fun.
do it.
So
Well,
I think, you know, as I said to Royfield before about this whole thing, it was an experiment. It's extraordinary. It's novel. It's new. I think it's slowly running its course, and it will develop and become something even better.
Well, in my career, I've had the honour of interviewing and talking to many famous Davids, David Hockney, David Attenborough.
Wow.
Now, David Archer.
There you go.
Radio royalty. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Quentin. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you.
All right. Who's got another question for us? Hold your hand up. Oh, Philippa Hall.
Yes.
As I live and breathe. You are up, Philippa. Can you? There you go. You're up.
Yeah.
Philippa. Ask your question.
Thank you. Hi, Tim.
Oh, sorry. Who, where are we? Who are we? Where?
I'm waving.
Oh, hang on. I've got to put you on gallery view.
I'll keep waving.
Waving. Where are you? Yeah, there you are.
No, there I am.
Philippa.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
That's me.
Yeah.
It's a very serious question, Tim. Colin the camper van. When will we have a sequel?
Hang on. What you're talking about is Colin the Camper Van, my book for children. And shortly after publication, I wrote the sequel to it. And it's a very small publishers in Norfolk. And she's been saying to me, no, we will. We will. I wrote it. And we've got all the drawings for it as well, by the brilliant Owen Claxton. Fantastic drawings. It's a much better story. That was written for my kids as a sort of a bedtime story. Then they're about 5, and it's a very short story. This one has got, it's a proper thing. I've also written, and now just recently, 6 short stories for older children. But the answer to your question is, I wish I knew. Because I've been lazy about it because I keep emailing us. Are we going to get this out? Oh yeah, no, we won't. So what I'm going to do, I've been meaning to do this, is on the back burner to take both of them and to go to a children's, literary agent who specialises in children's book.
Well, we look forward to the next one.
Thank you. I'm very. Have you got a camper van?
No, but we came to listen. You did a talk with a literary festival, and my son and I came along, and he loved the book, so we're waiting for the second one.
Good. No, there's another one which I wrote, which is the sequence of short stories, which is about the little people. Again, it goes back to not being bullied. It's about the little things that you don't notice. And it's like the banana that thought she was a star because when she was growing, she looked up and she saw the crescent moon among other stars. So she thought that she was a star. And then you won't go through the whole thing of coming from South America to Europe, and what happens. It's the banana that gets left on in the bowl and never gets eaten and goes rotten, but it becomes good. And then there's the one called Nigel, the nail that bent, which I was asked to read some short stories, and it's about a nail in Wales. And my Welsh accent is all right for a bit, but after a while it goes off. And so I got my friend Wayne Forrester, who is Welsh, to read it, and I'll give you the URL of that too. And he reads it beautifully. And it's a sweet story. I have to say, when he read it, and it's the first time I've ever heard my words being uttered by somebody else. And it's a joy when that happens. And he does it so well. And I have to say, it's a rather sweet story. And so you've got me going now. I'm going to package this whole thing together, and I'm going to get a children's literary agent, and I'm going to get them going.
Can I just quickly jump in? Because Philippa has a wonderful podcast called the Quick Book Reviews Podcast.
Aha.
So I reckon, right, that you need to get your people to speak to her people. So when you've got your book out, you can go onto her podcast and pimp it. Good style.
Excellent. Hang on. While you're doing that, while you're finding the next, when you're getting the next person, I'm going to find
Alrighty.
the URL for that thing. Hang on a sec.
Alrighty. Glyn Fullerlove, you're up next because you've got the great man's book. I can see there. So, I'll tell you what, Glyn. I'm going to just hold fire on that now. And you just wave if you've got a question. Lovely to see you, Francesca Word Salad.
Yes. Bye.
Claire Asprey, you've got a question. Amy Gilbert's got a question. I'm looking on to the next. You keep waving if you've got a question. Melissa Williams has got a question. Rosie McGlynn, Yeah, you had a go at me last week, Rosie. I don't know if I should be coming to you, but you are very good with your question. All right, I'm going to get to everybody. Right, Tim, are you ready to accept questions, sir?
Absolutely, yes. No, my Chrome has gone and hung, so I can't do it at the moment. But what I'll do is I will send you some links to the things that I've been talking about, and you can publish it on your Dums.
All righty. We've Claire Asprey, you are up if you want to unmute yourself, chicken.
So it's a very quick comment, not so much a question. And I'm just on behalf of the academic archers, given that I've spent a fair amount of time in the last couple of weeks writing up a chapter for the next academic archers book. Just to say that it's a very valid way of engaging with the program, and it's a great bunch of people. So I think it's really interesting how we can come at the program with lots of different perspectives based on the kind of specialisms that we arrive with. And I suppose on that basis, if there's a question, it's about, given your personal specialisms, what would you bring to an analysis of the archers based on what your specialist subject might be?
Do you mean in a literary, approaching it as literature?
Well, no, my specialist subject is housing policy, so that's the way that I look at the archers, but we've got all sorts of different people coming at it from all sorts of different aspects. So I'm just interested in if there's a special interest that you have that makes you look at the archers in a different way. No,
it'd be farming, really, because I've been very hands-on with that. I was brought up in the countryside. I worked on farms when I was a kid. My father decided that this, when coronavirus came along, it's like justifying my dad, because first thing that he did after the war was he went and took his family down to Tasmania because he thought there was going to be nuclear war. He's the man who put his money where his mouth was, and I was born on a Tasmanian sheep station as a result of that. And then in '76, he decided that there was going to be worldwide famine and that he wasn't going to be the one to find the supermarket shelves empty. And so he upped sticks and went down to Devon and created a 10-acre organic smallholding and lived off the land. And me and Judy went and helped him start that up and worked there for a year and got that going. So I mean, that's one of the lovely things about being in the Archers, is that although we're standing in a studio, in my head I'm out there in the fields and working with animals and working with my hands and building things and making things. And so that's if I weren't an actor, I'd be making things. I'd be creating stuff with my hands physically. And I've been here in this house since 1982, and virtually every single square inch of this house is my own work. And so yeah, I'm hands-on, and that's the aspect of it I really, really like. And that's the part of David that I am. There's not a lot of David that I am, but his physicality is, and his love of nature and of working is me. So yeah,
everything I know about farming I learned from the Archers. My granddad was a farmer.
Yeah, well, my mate Tony Armour-Trading has got a t-shirt that said everything I learned in life I learned from Star Trek. So there's a lot to be said for watching the telly.
Thank you for that question.
Thank you very much indeed.
Rosie McGlynn. Now, I've got a little idea, Rosie and Quentin, and very obviously Dum-de-Dum is a community, and I reckon we should get you, Quentin, to host an episode of Dum-de-Dum alongside Rosie McGlynn. What do you reckon, Rosie?
Awesome, totally up for that.
Well, let's make it happen. Claire Asprey's given us an unequivocal thumbs up. This is your moment to shine, as you do every week. Rosie, ask your question.
Well, I was going to say, first of all, just thank you, Royfield, for making our Friday so special through lockdown. It's been wonderful. I think we all really appreciate everything that you've done. It's really kept people going, and you've put a huge amount of yourself into it. So genuinely, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I am quite nice despite taking the mickey. But just a really quick Archers question. So Tim, so my question is, will Vince Casey entice Josh further into the dark side and bring Brookfield down? Because Josh is Josh is looking for a bit of excitement. Vince Casey is that kind of guy. and obviously David doesn't trust him. So is there a potential kind of Doomsville scenario where Vince Casey just takes down your business?
Well, of course, there's always two answers to this question. The first one is, how many episodes does that mean I'm going to get? Which is, from Tim's point of view, the most salient question. And then the other answer is Vince is a sweet talker. He's got the gift of the gab. I thought, right from the word go, that from David's point of view, that he didn't trust him an inch. And then he came around and thought, well, maybe he's not so bad after all. But clearly he is bad. I think he's painted basically as a baddie. I don't see how one can possibly see Vince. I mean, the name Vince, sorry if there are any Vinces out there listening to this, but Vince is sort of a traditional English, black and white movie bad guy. Is Vince. Oh, no, not Vince. It's the something about the name. I think he's probably painted as a bad guy. And if my son thinks he's a good guy, then he's definitely a bad guy, because Josh gets everything wrong at the moment, because that's the nature of the young man that he is. Very, very gullible. So I think probably the answer to your question is that in the long run, he will escape Vince's clutches. Hope that's an answer.
Thank you for that, Rosie. And Rosie and Quentin, we're going to make this happen in the next month or so. Right, Pat Brown, I'm coming to you after I speak to Melissa Williams, who looks like she's by the pool enjoying herself.
Yeah, Melissa, where are you?
Go on, Melissa, if you want to unmute yourself. Wait a minute, I'm trying to unmute you. I don't know what's that. There you go.
Where are you? Can't see you.
Melissa, you're waving furiously.
Oh, there you are.
Whilst I'm trying to unmute you, you can try and unmute yourself as well. There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. Hi. Yes, Anna Marie Island, Florida. I've met Tim.
Florida.
He has been so gracious to us. But what I want to ask you, is it lasagna or pizza?
What, that I don't like, that when cooked by Ruth?
What do you prefer?
Oh, I see. Okay. When I was at Bristol, when I was at the theatre school there, I used to have a test of restaurants to see who could produce the best lasagna. And the answer was right at the top of the hill in Bristol, which the most politically incorrect name that you can possibly imagine, but those Bristolians will know where I mean, up at the top of White Ladies Road. You get up onto the heath there, turn left, and there was an Italian restaurant just there that did the best lasagna I have ever tasted. Now, I am a very good, I make fantastic spaghetti bolognese. I'm second to none.
Yeah, Sam Batten.
But my new thing is that I'm in the supermarket the other day and I saw lasagna and I thought, I'm going to challenge myself to produce a lasagna that's going to knock even the one in Bristol into a cocked hat. So on the other hand, the Sorrento pizza down at Highbury Corner, which does absolutely the best pizza I've ever had. And when we were in San Francisco recently, and then we went and had the best pizza that will in the whole of the United States, the best pizza ever. And he gave it to it. The one that Sorrento pizza down on Highbury Corner is much better. So I love my pizza and I love my lasagna, but I think when it comes to it, pizza.
All right.
You got a full answer there, Melissa. Right. Who else was waving? Who happened to come to? Because all of a sudden I can't see Pat Brown. Okay, there you are, Pat. You were up. Go for it. And I got a bit of dead air there. There you go.
There you go.
Hi, Tim.
Hello.
Pizza or lasagna?
Lovely to see you. I met you. I think we've got two people on.
No, you're on. Go for it.
You're on, Pat. Good to see you, Pat.
All right, I think we met quite a long time ago in Birmingham. I think it was the 60th anniversary.
Oh, right. Okay.
And you were doing something with things in yogurt to make the sound of a newborn lamb. Something landing in yogurt was the sound of a lamb flopping out. You remember? Anyway,
I do.
Yeah, I've been listening to the. Go on. Sorry.
No, we did. Well, there was I had a one-man show, and at the end of it, we do the sound effects of lambing using yogurt and old quarter-inch tape, which is the straw, and a wet towel, which is the newborn lamb. And you drop the lamb on the wet straw, and you do the squelchy sounds with the yogurt, and then you have coming through the speakers the sound of a new lamb, and there it was, you know, the whole new life at Brookfield.
That's right. Well, I remember that. Anyway, what I want to ask is, I've been listening to the Nigel Pargeter triptych. I wonder if you have.
I haven't. No, I heard about it.
You may well need to see a solicitor. Because what actually happened on that roof?
Well, I pushed him.
That's
I
terrible.
couldn't stand the man. You know, somebody had to do it. Somebody had to get rid of him. God. I just saw the opportunity. I thought, you know, I can't miss this one. So I gave him a shove in the small of his back. Whoops. Oh dear, so sorry. Now, you must admit that the acting when it came down was fantastic. You know, the upset and the, you know, trying to deal with my sister. I think, you know, that was a pretty damned extraordinary performance from my part. But no, I pushed him. Yeah.
Oh God! Well, we heard it here first, folks. That's great.
No, we heard it second because Graham told us a couple of weeks ago that he did.
But in the triptych, he's slightly ambiguous about it.
Thanks for the question, Pat. All right, let's rattle through these questions because it's 20 past 8 now. So if you, please wave if I haven't come to you yet. Right, going on the second page. Let's go back because I know there was somebody else. Lonnie Bihar, Mr. Witherspoon, you are up, sir. Go.
All right. Thanks. Tim, this isn't a question. It's a comment and a compliment. As people know, I'm Witherspoon. I'm a psychiatrist. I'm a gay, Jewish, New York City psychiatrist, and I think David Archer is my favorite character on The Archers.
Wow.
You know, David is the person I would sit down and have a pint with at the pub.
Fantastic.
And I find he's a regular guy who's kind of dealing with life's everyday problems. And I relate to that. I'm a year older than he is in real life and in David Archer life. He was born, I think, in September 59. I was born in October 58. Okay. So I think we share a same taste in music, but again, I find David to be very personable. So I thank you for making David very personable and real, and I think that's a reflection of who you are as a person, as I can tell. So thanks, Tim.
Well, thank you so much. Are you in New York at the moment?
I am. I'm in my Greenwich Village apartment.
Oh
man,
it's
a beautiful day in New York.
I worked in New York in the 70s. I worked for a company called Foreign Study League. It was part of Reader's Digest, and I was a tour guide. I used to take students. I used to take them on tours around New York and organize these. And then the following year, I got a job for Trek America, which is driving around the States. So I had a 13-seater Dodge minibus full of tourists and drove through the northern states to San Francisco and then dropped down and picked up another batch in LA and then drove them through the southern states back to New York again. So I spent an entire summer in New York. Do you remember the Schaefer concerts in Central Park?
Oh, sure. Yeah. They had different sponsors, but I remember when they were a fantastic
woman called
Shelley Company. Yeah.
A wonderful woman called Shelley Lazar, who's the sister of my boss there, Fran Lazar, and she organized them. So I used to get free tickets for the Schaefer concert. So every Saturday I'd just be in Central Park listening to rock music. It was just, it was fantastic.
And I just want to give a shout out to Pat Hanavan, who has been my friend for 40 years. 40 years ago this summer, we were in Buffalo together. Her husband, Bill, was a medical school classmate of mine. And we've been friends ever since. And I got Pat re-listening to The Archers and to Dum Tee Dum. So a shout out to Pat down there on the screen.
Cool. Fantastic. It's
Thank you for that. With us being in the upper lower east west side. Do we have
a New York listening to us, man?
Before we go, Glyn, full of I think you're going to be our last one then, Glyn. You are up, my new foster dad.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Tim. And I shall do a plug for your book if anyone hasn't read it. Being David Archer,
marvelous,
definitely worth a read. And also, thank you very much for the shout out for the theatre staff. I do have a daughter, and she's a theatre technician, and so thank you for that shout out. My question is an Archer's related one. We've heard David musing about Ruth and about Ruth's lasagna.
Yeah.
If we are to hear Ruth, what will she muse about David?
Oh God, what a good question. What she got against David? I don't know. She's hard work. That's what I love about their relationship, actually. She's tough as old boots, Ruth Archer. She doesn't give an inch. But from David's point of view, you see, I don't know whether people really get this. He is completely soppy about her. That's his weakness in a way. He's madly in love, and he is terrified that the cancer's going to come back. So that was the whole thing that happened with Sam. And that's why that scene when he finds out that she'd fallen in love with this guy was so powerful, because, and that was the only time I actually really did have tears in my eyes in all these 38 years of actually, there was no acting required. It was really moving when he's so hurt because he thought that the cancer had come back and that's why she was behaving badly. And then out of left field, suddenly find that she's fallen in love with somebody else. That shook him to his boots. And I've played with that in my head from my point of view as David. That has never gone away, that he loves her to bits, but he doesn't quite totally trust her in the way. And he's terrified that either she's going to fall in love with somebody else or she's going to get cancer. So that's a lovely thing to play as subtext. And one of the things that we could, that can be done with these monologues is to find what's going on inside our heads, those kind of secrets. But as an actor, what you're allowed to do is to let that come through as subtext rather than the words that you say. I mean, I said, when I was writing about this earlier, I said, in the past, what you hear is not necessarily what the character is thinking, and now what you hear is not necessarily what the character is saying. So it turns it on its head. It's quite fun. So I don't know whether or not she would say, I don't really like him. I don't know. I think she loves him. She does. But I don't think she loves him quite as much as he loves her, which is fun. So he's always trying to win her. There.
Thank you for that great little bit of insight, Mr. B. We're about to start winding things up.
Good question. Thank you very much. Thank you.
It was a great question.
Make me think about that. It was good. Thank you.
We're going to go on to the quiz, everybody, and we're going to get the answers. Here they go. So what do we have here in question one? The animal is a boar. It's a chest, and that is a symbol of femininity. So that is her. Borchester is the answer to the pitch round question number one.
I did get that one.
Yay, well done. Number two, this is an Archer's thing or person. Do you want to have a guess at this, Mr. Bentinck?
Sago Vegerina.
That very good guess. Totally incorrect.
Right.
The flower and produce show. That is flower. That is produce, image number two.
Yeah.
And number three, that is a stage with lights. It's a show, the flower and produce show. Glinful of Love is nodding sagely there. He's got it. This one might be a little bit hard. Everyone's kind of shaking their head at number three. We have the number one. We have a bit of material with a bit of metal underneath, then a book. The number one is also single. That is a wick, as in a candle wick. And I read this out, K-E-T, and I went, ket. It's a single wicket. That's what that is. It's the single wicket. Glinful was going, oh, yeah. Pat Brown's giving me a thumbs down. How dare you, Pat? I thought it was quite good. Single wicket.
Very good.
Now, it's a Timothy Bentinck round, all right? When did Timothy begin the role of David? What year was it, Tim?
1982.
So B, 1982, and you did tell us in just before we went on to the quiz.
Yep.
Number 2, which were Tim's first words on the Archers? You also told us this. The answer is
evening.
Evening. That was B again. When being a man about town or the village in the 1980s, David had a trusty steed. What was it? What car did you have, Tim?
That was C, a Ford Escort XR3i.
It absolutely was. Wasn't it red?
I think it was.
I think it was red. Yeah.
I went to the car show once, and I went to the Ford stand, and we were there. And I went up to the Ford guy and I said, "Look, hi, my name's Tim Bentinck. I play David Archer in the Archers. As you probably know, he's just been given a Ford Escort XR3i. Can I have one, please, with it written on the side, David Archer? You know, and I'll do publicity for you." He looked at me as I was completely barking mad. Never happened.
Question number 4. The name Bentinck appeared on the Archers credits before Tim joined the set. How?
It was completely mad. Norman Painting wrote some episodes of the Archers under the name Norman Bentinck. And if you think of painting Bentinck, it is actually a kind of almost a homophone. Painting Bentinck. And so when I turned up, Tim Bentinck, he simply couldn't believe this as a coincidence. I couldn't believe it either. I mean, quite extraordinary.
And I think I got that from your book.
I think it was in my book.
Yes, there you go.
It's in my book, yeah.
Last question. David is a passionate man, but which thing gets his goat the most? What really gets you exercise the most? Is it A, Badgers, B, Vince Casey, or C, being owed money by Kenton?
Always, it's Kenton.
Well, I must admit, I didn't know the answer to that. I would have actually said Badgers, but you are David Archer, so you say it's Kenton. It's Kenton. So if you answered Kenton, that is the answer.
Yeah.
So let's go back on to gallery round, everybody. Anybody get all 8 correct? All right, then nobody's got a thumbs up yet. All right, 7. Right, Jane's got 7. Nick and Neil have 7. Tim's got 7. I'm going to go on to the other page as well. Who has got 7? Anybody else? All right, so we're going to go on to those 3 very quickly. It is your time to bask. Right, so Nick and Neil. Are you the 2 gentlemen who are over in the Black Country, kind of Staffordshire way?
We are, South Staffordshire.
What question did you get wrong?
The car.
I
went I didn't know. So
I've got a sneaky feeling your vintage of the Archers doesn't quite go back to the 1980s. Am I correct?
I'm only about 3-4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So you basically got them all right then. Okay. Yeah. Well done, sir.
For Friday. I don't mind.
Who else got 7? Tim, coming on to you, sir. Yeah. Oh, it's Tim and Tim. It's the Tim and Tim show. Tim, which question did you get wrong?
I got the last one wrong. I thought it would be Badgers.
Me too. I would have said Badgers.
Well, it's a subjective answer. I mean,
well, I don't think it is, because I was trying to work it out, because I think all of them get your goat.
Yes.
But you've only killed one of them.
That is a very good point, actually. I think Tim should have an honorary point. I think anyone who said Badgers should get an honorary point for that very reason, that he's only killed one of them.
Yeah, I said Badgers as well.
And who else got 7? There was somebody else. Jane, coming on to you. Bask, Jane, unmute yourself. There you go. You're up.
Hey, hi. I got your excellent single wicket clue wrong.
Oh.
I didn't get it wrong. I had absolutely no idea. I've written down Plumline test book.
Almost. You're almost there. Folks, I think that's it. That's the end of our COVID Coronas Lockdown Fridays. I'm going to unmute you all, which means that you can now give our Timothy Bentinck a round of applause for being so wonderful and spending his Friday with us. So a round of applause for Tim.
Yay!
Yay! Thank you, Mr. B. as I said, everybody, that's just about us done for this summer. Yeah, for no other reason than if I wasn't careful, I was going to run through all the actors blooming quickly if I kept on having them on every week. Timothy Bentinck, we thank you, we salute you for coming on and spending your Friday with us. Hopefully we'll get you back on Dum before the end of the year when everything goes back to relative normality.
Yeah.
But it's always lovely to see you, sir.
Well, you too, and thank you so much, Royfield. It's been absolutely wonderful, and I'm very pleased we haven't been invaded by any flashes or anything like that. And that was a plus, a bonus there. Once bitten, twice shy.
But it does add a certain frisson to the broadcast.
It does. You never know who's going to be there.
Exactly. You get to see him getting his little man out and stuff. But listen, everybody, thank you for supporting Dum Dum. If you want to do one thing, do us one favor. Go on to the BritishPodcastAwards.com/vote. You don't even have to be British to do it. So Lonnie Bihar over in the upper lower east west side, you can do it. Anyone from Planet Earth can do it. Let's go and vote for Dum Dum. Let's get the Archers a little bit of a mention on that great award ceremony. We probably won't win, but let's get a mention. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Be good. Be safe. And Quentin Cooper and Rosie Forty, I'm coming to you guys very soon because you're going to do a very special episode of Dum Dum. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Tim. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rafe.